You know the song. The man who sold the world. Well, this man sold the Eiffel Tower. Twice! And the strangest part is not the crime. The strangest part is that the harder you check the records, the less of this man actually exists. Paris, 1925. France's most famous landmark had a problem. After 36 years, the iron was rusting, and everybody knew it. The papers reported that maintaining the tower would cost millions of francs, 7,000 tons of iron exposed to the weather. Most of Paris read that story and turned the page. One man read it very, very carefully. This is him. Or at least, this is a man the United States government photographed. His federal file lists 47 aliases. Even this mugshot is filed under someone else's name. The record says he was born January 4th, 1890, in a small town in Bohemia. In 2015, a historian went there and searched the town's registers. There is no trace that this man was ever born. No verified birth, no school records. Prison papers describe his family as peasant people, which he spent a lifetime denying. He wore the title of Count the way other men wear a coat. Everything about him was tailored. Spring 1925. As the story has always been told, a man checked into one of the finest hotels in Paris, on the Place de la Concorde, and ordered stationery. Letters went out to the biggest scrap metal dealers in the city, government letterhead, the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. A confidential meeting, a government contract, total discretion. The stationery was fake. The ministry seal was fake. The deputy director general who signed it did not exist. But the men who received those letters were real. The most serious dealers in the Paris scrap trade. Men with warehouses, contracts, reputations. Every single one accepted. In a private suite at the Hotel des Crayons over cigars, the deputy director shared a state secret. The Eiffel Tower was coming down. And here is the thing, it sounded almost reasonable. The tower was rusting, the repairs cost millions, and it was never meant to be permanent in the first place. It went up for a fair in 1889 with a 20-year permit. That permit, the deputy director reminded them, was long gone. 7,000 tons of iron sold for scrap by sealed bid. And gentlemen, the Republic asks for absolute silence. The public would not understand. He even gave a tour. A rented limousine, the story goes, a wave of a fake ministry card at the gate, and a huddle of businessmen pacing the girders they believed they were about to buy. One dealer leaned in closer than the rest. The retellings call him André Poisson. New money, thin connections, hungry to matter in circles that would not have him. No court file preserves his name. He made sure of that himself. Poisson hesitated. Something about the deal felt wrong, and he said so. What happened next is the moment this man became a legend. The deputy director lowered his voice. He was, he confessed, a poorly paid public servant, handling a contract worth millions. Surely Monsieur understood that a man in his position expected a little something for himself. He asked his victim for a bribe. And that is what closed the sale. Because con men run. Con men rush you. But a corrupt official? A corrupt official is real. Poisson had finally met a government man who behaved exactly the way he expected government men to behave. The doubt died on the spot. The story says Poisson paid the winning bid and the bribe on top. The retellings give the figure as $70,000 in some versions, francs in others. Either way, it left in cash, in one briefcase. And as always with this man, the receipt does not survive. Within the hour, the story goes, a first-class compartment was carrying him east, toward Vienna, with a briefcase in the rack above his head. He was not hiding. He was waiting. Every morning he read the Paris papers, watching for the scandal, the headline, the manhunt. Nothing. Day after day, nothing. Because Poisson said nothing. Not to the police, not to the press, not to his wife. Admitting he had bought the Eiffel Tower from a stranger in a hotel room was worse than losing the money. The perfect crime is not the one nobody can solve. It is the one nobody reports. And here, the legend doubles itself. Every retelling agrees on what happened next. A few months later, he came back to Paris and ran the exact same con again. New letterhead, new dealers, another suite at the Crillon. In some versions, he collects a second deposit and vanishes onto a train. In others, one dealer smells it, runs to the police, and the deputy director walks out a side door minutes ahead of them. Now here is what the record shows. Nothing. No police file, no newspaper story, no name, no date, no document. The second sale exists only in the telling. The most famous con of this man's life is the one nobody can prove ever happened, which, if you think about it, is the greatest con of all. Long before Paris, and long after, he worked the Atlantic itself. Crossing after crossing, first class, a different name on every manifest. Ocean liners were floating casinos full of rich, bored strangers. For a card man with manners, it was a harvest. Fellow passengers met a charming European count. The count had rules. A list he is said to have lived by. Be a patient listener. Never look bored. Agree with his politics. Share his religion. Never boast. And never, ever get drunk. Read it again and notice something. It is not a list of tricks. It is a manual for becoming another man's mirror. On land, his favorite prop was a small cedar box with brass rollers and dials. A money box, he would explain, reluctantly. Fed a real $100 bill, it printed a perfect copy. It just needed 6 hours per bill. The delay was the genius. Chemistry needs time. Machines that work instantly look like tricks. He never offered to sell it. Marx begged him to. The retellings put the price as high as $25,000 a box. By the time the box produced its first sheet of blank paper, the count was 3 states away. And then there is the Chicago story. He walks into Al Capone's office and asks for $50,000 to double in a stock deal. Capone pays. 2 months later, Lustig returns every dollar, untouched, apologizing that the deal fell through. Capone, staring at the only honest man in Chicago, hands him $5,000 for his trouble. Which was the plan all along. Is the Capone story true? It comes from the same well as the Tower, a memoir, retold for 90 years, polished smoother with every pass. With this man, even the footnotes are grifting. What is documented is worse. In 1930, he went into business with a forger named William Watts. Together, they started printing $100 bills. These were not ordinary fakes. Currency historians still call the Lustig Watts bills the super notes of the era, clean enough to pass bank tellers. Tens of thousands of dollars a month, moving through mob channels for 5 years. Fooling one rich man at a time is a con. Undermining the currency of the United States is a declaration of war on the Treasury. Now it was federal. Now it was the Secret Service. An agent named Peter Rubano made the count his personal project. For years, the file grew and the man slipped every net. 47 aliases will do that. May 10th, 1935, a street corner in New York. A hand finally lands on the count's shoulder. They held him at the federal jail on West Street in Manhattan, a building the government considered escape-proof while the case was prepared. He had other plans for the holiday weekend. He cut through his bars, knotted bedsheets into a rope, and climbed down the face of the building in broad daylight. When people on the sidewalk stopped to stare, he pulled a rag from his pocket and wiped the windows as he went. They watched a window washer reach the ground, bow politely, and walk away. In the empty cell, guards found a note, a handwritten quotation from Les Miserables. The escaped prisoner wanted his pursuers to know exactly which character he had been reading about. The honest man, hunted by an obsessed lawman. 27 days. That is how long America's most wanted confidence man lasted. Agents cornered his car in Pittsburgh after a 9-block chase. He rolled down the window, smiled, and said, "Well, boys, here I am." That winter, he pleads guilty. 20 years. And not in just any prison. The government reserved him a cell on the Rock. On Alcatraz, the man of 47 names became a number. Prisoner 300. The count who once held court in Paris hotel suites now held a mop. His prison file records 1,192 medical requests. The staff wrote him off as a hypochondriac, a con man running one last hustle for softer treatment. In early 1947, the complaints turned real. Pneumonia. A transfer to the Federal Medical Center at Springfield, Missouri. He died there on March 11, 1947, at 8:30 in the evening. The government announced nothing. For 2 years, the outside world had no idea the great confidence man was gone. And when the certificate was finally filed, it was filed under Robert V. Miller. Look at line 10, usual occupation. Apprentice salesman. And counterfeiter. No verified birth, no real name, a death under an alias, kept quiet for 2 years. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower left exactly one honest document behind. And even that one is signed by somebody who never existed. This has been Paper Trail. Case file number 3. The man who invented himself. The file stays open.